If you haven't already, check out Necronomipod on CastBox, a top podcast app on iOS and Android with more than 28 million users worldwide. CastBox has a brand new way to find content you'll love. Just enter a keyword or phrase, and the app searches the show titles and transcripts of every single episode to deliver exactly what you're looking for. Download CastBox today and see for yourself.
In part 2 of our discussion on Scientology, we continue our look into L. Ron Hubbard and his journey into forming this cult. Today we'll explore Dianetics and how this science led to the official formation of Scientology. Brace yourself. By the end of this episode, much like us, you're all going to be experts on engrams, analytical minds, reactive minds, security checks, genetic entities, thetans, e-meters, audits, clams, tone scales, clear minds, the fair game law, and why Dianetics believes women are the absolute worst. I'm Mike.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Dave. If you thought IRS audits were scary, stick around. These motherfuckers won't just take your assets, they'll take your soul. This is Necronomipod.
So, but anyway, there is this mind, and then there's a body. So actually, a spirit is wearing a mind, and it's wearing a body. And when you audit or process a person, he then is able to confront this mind, which hitherto has been totally invisible to him.
Talking here about the unconscious mind.
Well, yes, there's the conscious mind, the unconscious mind. Any kind of mind is simply a composite of mass, which contains experience, pictures of experience, and so forth. Traumatic experience, pleasant experience, and so forth. This is a record of his experience, and that is his mind.
So if you're going to a get-together, we're going to say this is going to be like something that starts in the daytime, like summer, early afternoon, late afternoon into the evening.
Like a picnic?
And going to go late. It could be a picnic. It could just be a house party.
Could be an orgy?
But I don't want you to focus on the food. It could be an orgy. You'll need to stay hydrated. Top 3 beers.
Interesting.
In the summertime?
Not necessarily.
Spring.
But I didn't want to pinpoint it so that you're thinking like only one way. Like essentially I just want to know what are your top 3 favorite go-to beers. That'll
allow me to keep drinking all day. So not necessarily 12% beers because you want to keep drinking all day.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I don't know. You can kind of play with that, but your top 3 beers in general. I'll go first because I kind of caught you guys off guard there. Miller Lite's always my go-to.
Sure.
I think we all drink Miller Lite pretty easily. And I like that one because it's very light. You can drink it all day.
Very drinkable.
I've been going to town on Dos Equis Lager, not the amber, the lager recently. That's become one of my new favorites. And I like that because it almost tastes like just like a Mexican Budweiser, I think. Little heavier than Miller, but again, you could probably drink that all day and still be fine.
Yeah.
And then I probably would say Sierra Nevada's double torpedo IPA or torpedo double IPA. It's really good. Dave, you would not enjoy that.
Sounds awful.
You would not like that. Have you ever had Stone Cold's Broken Skull IPA?
No.
I'm going to have to order some more of that. You could try it. It's actually really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are my 3. Torpedo, Sierra Nevada's Torpedo IPA, Dos Equis, and Miller Lite.
I would say...
And I guess the way I should have phrased the question is like your anytime beers, your top 3 anytime beers.
Well, it'd be Miller Lite. That's a given. If not Miller Lite, then Yingling. And then if I'm going to get fancy, it would be that blood orange IPA. Who makes it?
I forgot who makes that.
Thirsty Dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Blood orange IPAs are phenomenal. Okay.
Miller Lite, Heineken, Modelo.
Nice. I do enjoy Heineken.
Me too.
Modelo's are good.
I haven't had Modelo in a while.
I love Modelo.
You mean you don't want Foster's? What does Foster's mean again?
I reckon it's Australian for beer. It's getting better every week, right? Beer.
Somebody had told me that when you say it, you sound like Kevin from The Office when he does his Australian accent.
That's a compliment.
Did you see he's selling shirts now? What's his actual actor's name? Brian Baumgartner or Garter or whatever. He's selling shirts of like him laying on the floor with spilt chili. Like it's a cartoon drawing from when he drops the chili. It's hilarious.
That's fantastic.
It's really cool. Anyways, all right. We had a little bit of normalcy. Now let's get into some
Cult
psycho
time.
crazy
Cult time.
talk. Back at it for part 2 of 3.
Where did we leave off, Ian? Can you remind everyone?
So last week we left off with L. Ron was in a bit of a low spot, kind of bummed out about his Navy career, bummed out at the fact that his marriage had failed, which I don't really understand because he had Sarah Northrop, but he was still bummed out. And that was all his fault that marriage failed. But so then he started his affirmations.
Because cult leaders are not failures, Ian. So a divorce is a failure.
That's true. That's a good point.
I say cult. That is my opinion. That is Mike talking. It's my opinion that this is a cult.
Not an opinion of Cool Down Media LLC. So and then he went into the fantasy club in Los Angeles, learned mastered his trade of hypnosis, and then figured it was time to launch his new science.
Exciting times, my friends.
Part 1 of Scientology available in the archives. We recommend you check that out before listening to the part 2. Really doesn't fit the story together if you're just jumping in right now.
No.
Yeah, what's wrong with you? Why are you listening to part 2 before part 1?
Yeah, turn this off right now. Go listen to part 1, then go listen to Art Bell, and then become a patron and listen to Art Bell part 2, and then listen to Scientology part 2. Welcome back.
So Dianetics was first mentioned in the December 1949 issue of Astounding Science Fiction, where the editor said, quote, "The power is almost unbelievable. It proves the mind not only can, but does rule the body completely."
Almost unbelievable.
It's shocking.
What does that word mean, Dianetics? Is this some sort of Latin root word? Study of the mind,
Dumb fuckery.
something?
It's a study of dumb fuckery.
In April 1949, the editor talked more about the upcoming new science called Dianetics, saying it could cure insanity, give a person perfect memory, and a higher IQ. And also interesting that the claim of insanity is that it's contagious.
Insanity is contagious?
Yeah, like mental illness is contagious. So don't get coughed on by somebody that has like schizophrenia or something.
In all fairness, Britney Spears once said, "You drive me crazy." Just saying. It's contagious.
She drives your eardrums crazy. That's what she does.
Yeah, Crazy in Love. That was a Beyonce song, wasn't it? I don't know why I'm looking at you, Dave.
It is.
Do you know that?
Sure I do.
Of course. Okay.
I know good music.
Forgot you're a huge Beyonce fan.
See?
I was more of a Destiny's Child guy myself.
Nothing wrong with that. It's all better than Britney, man.
It's not. It's not.
This also claimed that that Dianetics would completely cure certain ailments like asthma. It was also claimed that Dianetics had been tested and cured over 250 people.
It's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people.
Straight cured.
One of the first followers was John W. Campbell, who we mentioned in part 1. He was the editor that took Hubbard under his wing at the beginning of his writing career. Campbell was one of the first subjects to undergo auditing, which we'll get into later. He was taken further and further back through his memories until he arrived at the moment of his birth. This supposedly got rid of Campbell's cyanitis, so Campbell was 100% on board, but it's pretty likely that Hubbard hypnotized him into believing that his cyanitis was gone.
Hypnotism's obviously the most likely of this story.
Sure, absolutely. It's interesting they're already calling it science and that it's not even close to being science.
Well, so what I was reading about this period in time was that the science fiction community, they had a pretty big egos about themselves back in the 40s. And because a lot of their stories that they were writing, like about like rockets and different shit, were kind of coming true, like, and it would, like, some of them,
that is true, sure.
So they fancied themselves like
as like they were on this leading edge of the newest thing, and they were fully sold that one of these days one of them was going to come up with like the next new science that was like their science. And
by writing science fiction.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
And L. Ron Hubbard was the guy to come to the forefront of that whole thought process.
All right, that makes sense.
Because I was going to bring that up before, like in the issue of Astounding Science Fiction. So off the bat, like I'm just thinking like, okay, this is a magazine where it's just fake science and just like people having fun and being imaginary.
Right. Yeah, but like I said, they had like this this thought behind them, that because the things that they were writing about, some of it, it was coming true.
But that was more about predicting future enhancements, and there's books and stuff where you go back and like the stuff that was created on Star Trek eventually becoming true, and it's that same kind of thing. But that's not what we're talking about with this clown.
So you're telling me if I write enough like Britney Spears fan fiction that might come true?
Oh, like now you're saying you're going to will your fan fiction into?
Well, that's what they're doing clearly. So
that's magic.
Yeah, you're talking about magic now.
Well, but they're just making stuff up and saying, well, this is going to come true.
They're predicting what the future will hold based on...
Okay, I'm predicting in my fan fiction.
What are you? You're predicting something for
we're
yourself,
not gonna get
or
into
you
specifics of
okay.
that?
Oh,
no.
okay.
It's a kid's show.
With Campbell being completely on board with this, he wrote to a doctor friend of his named Dr. Joseph Winter, saying, quote,
"With cooperation from some institutions, some psychiatrists, Hubbard has worked on all types of cases: institutionalized schizophrenics, apathies, manics, depressives, perverts, stuttering, neurosis, in all nearly 1,000 cases, but just a brief sampling of each type. He doesn't have proper statistics in the usual sense, but he has one statistic. He has cured every patient he worked with. He has cured ulcers, arthritis, asthma."
So literally this is not peer reviewed, and there's no empirical evidence to suggest that any of these findings are accurate.
What's interesting is
it is Dave's opinion.
A lot of the ailments, like the physical ailments that he claims to be able to cure, are stuff that he suffered from himself, or that he at least claimed to have suffered from when he was scamming the military, when he, like the ulcers and all that shit.
Which makes sense to present yourself as having cured yourself.
Yeah. So now with this doctor on board, these three men collaborated together to work out all the details on how to present Dianetics to the world. The Hubbard Dianetic Research Foundation was established in April of 1950 in Elizabeth, New Jersey, with Hubbard, his wife Sarah, Winter, and Campbell on the board of directors. Dianetics was launched as a preview in Astounding Science Fiction's May 1950 issue, and if you wanted the full course, you have to buy the book for $4, which was titled Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, and that was officially published on May 9th, 1950.
Like you said, there's literally fiction in the publication's title. Fiction.
Dave, do you have that book on your shelf next to the Bible?
Dianetics?
Yeah.
It's just as true.
In the fiction section.
Yeah.
So the basic idea in Dianetics is that the mind consists of two parts: the analytical mind and the reactive mind. The reactive mind, the mind which operates a person, is physically unconscious and acts as a record of shock, trauma, pain, and otherwise harmful memories. Experiences like these stored in the reactive mind are called engrams. Dianetics is a method used to erase these engrams in the reactive mind to achieve the famous state of mind that Scientology uses, which is clear. So are you following me, right?
It's like the phrase, when you fabricate something out of whole cloth. That's the exact definition of this. It's just nothing.
This one gets a little tough to keep up with.
Yeah, get your everybody listening. Get your note. Get a notebook out and take some notes here.
Was this the episode where people are gonna freaking look like Charlie Day with his little wall of what the fuck things mean? Yeah, everyone take notes. Try to keep up with all of this.
So in Dianetics, the unconscious or reactive mind is described as a collection of mental image pictures, which contain the recorded experience of past moments of unconsciousness, including all sensory perceptions and feelings involved, ranging from prenatal experiences, infancy, and childhood, to even the traumatic feelings associated with events from past lives and extraterrestrial cultures. But that past lives shit and that alien stuff is going to come down the line a little bit. We're not exactly into the past lives yet.
That's the best part of this whole story. That's my favorite.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Oh, we're just stringing people along. We got to get them there.
It's the money shot.
Yes, it is.
The type of mental image picture created during a period of unconsciousness involves the exact recording of a painful experience. Hubbard called this phenomenon would be an engram, and defined it as, quote, a complete recording of a moment of unconsciousness contained physical pain or physical emotion of all perceptions.
You know what's a real engram to me?
What's that?
Having to learn about fucking Scientology.
Well, you might need to head down to Columbus and get this.
We'll get you cleaned up. We'll get you
Get audited at the
we'll
news
get
center.
your mind, quote, clear.
Do you guys remember prenatal experiences? Is that
course
common?
I do, yeah.
Floating around in the womb?
Yeah.
I've never audited to get myself back there, so I do not.
I didn't have to. I just had it.
Oh, you just remember it?
You should write a book.
Oh, I'm not trying to exploit my thoughts.
Hubbard said that painful or physical emotional traumas caused aberrations, deviations from rational thinking in the mind, which produce lasting negative physical and emotional effects. When the analytical, which would be your conscious mind, shut down during these moments, events and perceptions of this period were stored as engrams in the unconscious or reactive mind. So something bad happens to you, it creates an engram, and that's just kind of sitting there making you feel shitty.
So probably like when
Stores
Mike's,
in your reactive mind. I'm sorry.
I say like when Mike's frat brothers probably teabagged him when he was unconscious from drinking all day, stuff like that.
Flying squirrels, please.
So he got a flying squirrel done to him when he was super drunk and can't remember it. Now he's afraid of squirrels.
Makes sense.
I don't trust squirrels.
Well, there you go.
Things are fucking nasty. Also, I don't like penises, so maybe it all just ties in.
There you go.
We figured it out. See you next week.
Hate penises. I beat mine every chance I get.
Really?
That was so stupid.
You like to punish your penis, huh? Was that your college nickname, the Penis Punisher?
It's one of many.
The Pussy Whisperer and the Penis Punisher.
What do we have on Patreon?
The Pussy
Laycock
Whisperer.
or whatever.
Mr. Laycock. You should see the cock he lays. My headstone's going to be like 13 feet tall with all my nicknames on it. Actually, that was one of my nicknames in college, Mr. 13 Feet.
Hubbard claimed that these engrams are the cause of almost all psychological and physical problems. In addition to physical pain, engrams include words or phrases spoken in the vicinity while the patient was unconscious. So not necessarily something happening to you physically would cause this, but if you heard something said, it could implant that engram. On top of being extremely homophobic, which we'll get into the tone scale in a bit here, Dianetics did not have a high opinion of women. Since engrams could be linked back to birth or while the baby was still in the womb, women were blamed for a lot of engrams, if not the vast majority of them. Hubbard called women, quote, unfaithful creatures, and said that I'm not sure how a woman would read Dianetics and be like, oh, all right, yeah,
I gotta get in on that.
I dig this.
So yeah, he called them unfaithful creatures and said that most had affairs while they were pregnant. Most. This isn't just some. This is most women.
Not a handful.
No, most. Right. The baby inside the womb would hear the mother talking shit on her husband while in the act of cheating on him, thus creating the engram.
Billy never fucks me like this.
Now poor baby is hearing about Dad Billy.
Right.
Can't be Mr. Laycock.
Well, because a perfect example would be because a lot of times around this time, sons were born with the same name as their dad, so they'd be like Junior. So this unborn fetus would hear, would you say Billy doesn't fuck me?
Billy doesn't pound me like this.
So when this baby was born and have the same name as the father, it would attach all that negative shit talking the mother was doing while having sex with this other man and talking shit on the husband. Those would attach.
Try to follow that one.
Those would attach as engrams.
Okay.
Yeah. Specifically, that would cause an inferiority complex. That's where you would get
For
that
the baby.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because as a fetus, you heard your mom telling her lover that you couldn't fuck her as good as the lover. So, I mean, that's surely going to fuck anyone up, right?
Obviously.
The thing
When you recall all of that, as a teenager.
When you're audited.
Yeah.
Dianetics also says that all, quote, feeble-minded people are the result of engrams caused by women trying to abort their babies.
Oh, okay.
Because on top of women being unfaithful creatures, almost all women at one point try to abort their babies, according to Hubbard.
All women. So not most. All at
no,
this
most
point.
of all.
Most of all.
Another most. We're saying the majority of women try to abort their babies.
But I'm wondering how they would do that, Ian.
I've got that fact right here. They would stab knitting needles into their stomachs or up into their vaginas.
Almost all women
Almost all.
who get pregnant stick knitting needles
Into their stomach.
Or their vagina.
So when that happens, when they do that, then you are
creates an Ingram.
You are creating a, quote, feeble-minded person.
One could argue that only feeble-minded people would be susceptible to Scientology.
Which then would make sense that all of them, all of their moms attempted to stick needles up in them.
I think we solved it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Circle of life.
Yeah, I mean, and you can go on Amazon and purchase this book.
You can also go on Amazon and purchase our T-shirts and hoodies and tank tops and long sleeve shirts. Available right now, Amazon.com, and search Necronomipod.
Much better way to spend your hard-earned money.
Yeah.
Well, furthermore, a pregnant woman would cause Ingrams onto an unborn child by being constipated. This is a direct quote from Dianetics about what a pregnant woman might say while constipated to cause an Ingram. You can read this quote because this just makes me feel uncomfortable. This whole quote in general.
This is hell. I'm all jammed up inside. I feel so stuffy I can't think. This is too terrible to be born.
God damn, I gotta shit this baby out of me.
If only it said that.
This Ingram would cause chronic colds for the child due to the I'm so stuffy part. It could also cause a depression Ingram from the this is too terrible to be born part. So you following this so far? How this process works?
Off the rail, batshit crazy already.
Yeah.
So to get rid of these Ingrams, Dianetics came up with a therapy called auditing. So one person is the auditor and guides this person, which is called the pre-clear. The pre-clear's job is to look into their mind and while they talk to the auditor, and the auditor acknowledges what the pre-clear says and controls the process so the pre-clear can focus completely on going back through their memories. And like we said, you're going to go back all the way to
in the womb.
Yeah, in the womb. So the auditor and pre-clear sit down in chairs facing each other, and then the process goes in these following, and these are specific steps from Scientology. The auditor assures the pre-clear that he will be fully aware of everything that happens during the session. 2. The pre-clear is instructed to close his eyes for the session, entering a state of Dianetic reverie, signified by a, quote, tremble of the lashes.
Literally, a tremble of the lashes.
During the session, the pre-clear remains in full possession of his will and retains full recall thereafter. 3. The auditor installs a, quote, canceller, an instruction intended to absolutely cancel any form of positive suggestion that could accidentally occur. This is done by saying, quote, in the future, when I utter the word canceled, everything I have said to you while you were in the therapy session will be canceled and will have no force with you. Any suggestion I have made to you will be without force, and when I say the word canceled, do you understand?
So this is in case you accidentally say something good to them and it kind of gets in the way of them recalling these bad engrams?
Canceled. Next question.
Well, what we were talked about in part 1, this is like a really hypnotic kind of thing. You can see where like the hypnosis stuff that he.
It's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just really hard to follow what they're getting at sometimes.
Number 4, the auditor then asked the pre-clear to locate an exact record of something that happened to the pre-clear in his past, like, quote, locate an incident that you feel you can comfortably face. So
Okay.
something.
So not too traumatic.
Just something that maybe pissed you off or wasn't great.
Not
but-
your mom fucking the mailman. Nothing too traumatic yet.
Right.
Your pregnant mom.
Right. Pregnant
keep
with you. You're just still floating around trying to grow and, become a baby.
Right. Mailman's cock's hitting you in the womb.
Yeah. God, get the fuck out of my eye, dude. Just drop off that Playboy and get the fuck out of here.
5, the pre-clear is invited by the auditor to quote, go through the incident and say what is happening as you go along. So you're going through this process and you're just like describing everything in detail. 6A, the auditor instructs the pre-clear to recall as much possible of the incident, going over it several times, quote, until the pre-clear is cheerful about it.
No, and then he stabbed me.
Cheerful about it.
Then he stabbed me.
You
Then he stabbed me. Well, then he stabbed me. He stabbed me. It's all right.
6B, when the pre-clear is cheerful about an incident, the auditor instructs the pre-clear to locate another incident. Quote, let's find another incident that you feel you can comfortably face. The process outlined at steps 5 and 6A then repeats until the auditing session's time limit, usually 2 hours or so, is reached. And that probably costs you about $200 to $300.
I was just going to say, and people pay for this shit.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how many shirts, Necronomipod shirts, $200 or $300 could get you? Like 2.
A whole new wardrobe.
Like 2, because we're fucking bougie as shit.
Number 7, then the pre-clear is then instructed to return to present time. 8, the auditor checks to make sure the pre-clear feels himself to be in present time, not still recalling a past incident. 9, the auditor gives the pre-clear the canceller word, like, quote, very good, canceled. 10, the auditor tells the pre-clear to feel alert and return to full awareness of his surroundings. Quote, when I count from 5 to 1 and snap my fingers, you will feel alert. So very hypnotic.
It's just, regular hypnosis.
It's a very hypnotic experience.
So when you get out of here, you're supposed to feel better, and then you're hooked, and you want to sign up and do more and do this again.
Right, exactly. We'll see later on when we're going through some of this stuff, and then in part 3 during the Sea York times, people start just purposely making up things to keep this, not even to keep the game going. Some people just to get out of the situation because, like, I don't want to fucking sit here anymore.
Like, you're not talking about the auditors, you're talking about the pre-clears.
Pre-clears,
would
correct.
Make stuff up.
Right.
Because you have to say something.
Right.
Well, and because hypnosis doesn't work, and so they're not in a trance, so they don't know what to do. They're like, well, fuck, I paid all this money.
Hypnosis does work.
For the sake of this story, it's the most rational argument that there is.
But this is basically hypnosis.
Yeah.
Masqueraded as a mental treatment, as mental therapy. And it's convincing people that they're looking back into memories that go all the way back to...
Is there any, like, fake regression memory planting stuff going on here?
Nothing that I could... I mean, I'm sure...
Like, what do you mean? Like, people plowing moms so the baby remembers it later? And be like, oh, I did that on purpose so that we can regret, go back and remember this? Is that what you mean? I'll sign up for that job.
No,
I'll be an auditor.
Like the whole, like we talked about a couple weeks ago with the satanic panic stuff where you're, they're just asking leading questions and then planting memories into your subconscious that didn't really happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
where kids remember being molested by, a satanic cult that just, it just wasn't real.
Would it surprise you that these pre-clears could be manipulated that way?
No, it would not.
So by August 1950, Hubbard's book had sold 55,000 copies and was selling at a rate of 4,000 copies a week, and was being translated into French, German, and Japanese. 500 Dianetic auditing groups have been set up across the United States, and tons of people were going to Elizabeth, New Jersey, to the main headquarters to officially learn from Hubbard and be considered a sponsored Hubbard auditor. These courses cost around $500 in 1950s money, which is like $5,000 today.
So it's not an actual organization at this point? Is it more just like a pyramid scheme and all the money flows upward? That's what it sounds like. Kind of.
It's like, at this point, it's like you could buy the book and you could do auditing with other, like, there would be nothing stopping us from, like, if we wanted to audit each other.
We can buy the course for $500, then we can go back to, Topeka, Kansas and start scamming people.
Exactly. We haven't gotten to the point where this is completely structured.
Yeah, okay.
And and we'll get there where it's very looked down upon if you try to take this stuff outside of Scientology and teach it.
So that's a little different than other cults that we've talked about, right?
We're not really at a cult yet.
But in the sense of even like in their early formations, I feel like the leaders had a grasp and a control on everything. Like nothing was getting out, as this one could kind of ease. Like you said, it was frowned upon, but it could still very easily, people could get the book or whatever, do the audit, and then just go about their way. That wasn't necessarily happening in other cults.
This is more of a money scheme right now.
So now they're just looking for money. He's not looking for power.
No.
He's looking for money.
Yeah. Well, he had written all these hundreds of books, and this one seemed to take off, so he's just trying to cash in on it, is what I get out of this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and then we can get these other people to come and pay for courses, and we'll scam. It's just an additional layer of scamming.
Dude's just
trying to think of somebody,
books,
I don't know.
Sell some books and make some money.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, some pseudo doctor that comes up with some bullshit.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Oz, maybe.
Ooh, you went Dr. Oz.
Yeah. Dr. Phil's not too bad.
I don't know their stories. I was just making them up. They
just
might be good.
Pseudoscience nonsense.
Yeah. But
is that what Dr. Oz is?
He's an actual doctor.
Yeah.
But Dr. Phil's not a doctor.
No?
Not an MD.
Is Dr. Drew a doctor? I think he is.
I don't know. Dr. Oz is an MD. Like, he taught at Columbia and stuff, I think.
But I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, all his colleagues are like, yeah, fuck that dude. He's like doing
got some wacky ideas.
He's doing
too.
some weird shit now.
Okay.
I just remember my grandmother always used to tell me what Dr. Oz was up to, and like what he was saying was supposed to be good. And I'm like, nah, it doesn't sound right to me.
I'm going to do the opposite.
That sounds kind of weird.
Not do that.
Dianetics started to lose credibility in August 1950, so it didn't take long for
4 months.
Yeah, for some people to start getting kind of sour to this whole idea. This happened because there was a presentation by Hubbard before an audience of 6,000 people at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, and it failed terribly. He was billing this as he was going to introduce the first true clear person. So the first person that has become clear, and her name was Sonia Bianca. And he told the audience that this was the result of her undergoing the Dianetic therapy, and now she possessed perfect memory and was cured of all of her ailments, which her ailments, it was an allergy to pain was what she was cleared of. So whatever that means.
An allergy to pain.
An allergy to pain, and she had perfect memory. Because that was what you were supposed to be able to get from Dianetics. Everybody should have been able to get once you go clear is perfect memory.
Perfect memory, meaning you can recall every second of your entire life, you know.
Perfect memory.
Well, that's interesting.
Back to the womb.
I'd like to have that.
I don't think I'd want that.
Just some
I don't
stuff
know.
you just want to forget.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's all good.
Yeah.
I think part of life is being able to put stuff behind you and forget about it and move on.
Like all those teabag squirrel balls and all that stuff.
I could taste the nut hair on my tongue.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm about to make myself gag.
So the crowd was pretty underwhelmed by this woman because they were expecting to see like the next level of human evolution, kind of. And it's this woman just
with a big halo over her head floating out on stage.
Just some girl standing there like, the fuck is this?
Yeah, all they got was just this woman that said that, you know, her sinuses were clear. She wasn't afraid of pain anymore. And it was just kind of like, all right.
He may not have thought this one through.
Yeah. So trying to get the crowd back, Hubbard made a brutal mistake of opening up questions from the crowd. And since Sonia was supposed to have perfect memory, now that she was clear, the crowd started yelling out questions at her. And the questions are so funny. The one was, quote, "What did you have for breakfast on October 3rd, 1942?
Genius. I love it.
But the thing with some of these, like that one, you could just say something like, I had eggs and bacon.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, like she could roll with that.
Yeah. The next one was, quote, "What's on page 122 of Dianetics?"
Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah. But then when Hubbard turned his back to her, someone just being a straight asshole in the crowd yelled, "Quick, what's the color of Hubbard's tie?"
It's great.
I wouldn't call that person an asshole. It's a hero.
Hilarious.
That's a hero.
So
what's the color of Hubbard's tie?
She completely froze. She just, this whole thing, just, you know, she had nothing for it.
She should have started speaking in tongues because that's what other fake religions do. It works for them.
Oh, damn.
But the only thing Hubbard could come up with to explain as to why she had just frozen. He said that when he called her up on stage, she got frozen in present time and it had blocked all of her total recall.
Oh, that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
I believe him.
Never mind. I take all that back.
Well, it's weird with that because back in the 50s, that's just like a bad night, and he can be like, okay, well, I'm never going to do that shit again.
It's not on YouTube the next day.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's not this was trending on Twitter and blowing up on the gram.
If this was today, it would have been that there would be no Scientology. It would have, it'd have been a laughing stock. Soon after this whole debacle, Dr. Winter became disillusioned, and in 1951, he had wrote that he had never seen a single convincing clear, saying, quote, "I've seen some individuals who are supposed to have been clear, but their behavior does not conform to the definition of the state. Moreover, an individual supposed to have been clear has undergone a relapse into conduct which suggests an incipient psychosis."
He didn't figure this out up front. It took him all this time.
He got there, though. He got there.
Hubbard also faced other practitioners moving into leadership positions within the Dianetics community. Like we were saying, it was structured as this open kind of public thing where you could
open source code that people
exactly
could make it better. So were there any splinter versions that actually survived and turned into other religions or movements? Or
that's a good
not
question.
that I really know of. Yeah. By late 1950, the Elizabeth, New Jersey Foundation was in just complete financial crisis, and the Los Angeles Foundation was more than $200,000 in debt, which is over $1 million in today's.
Who gave this jackass $1 million?
Well, he was making a fuck ton of money from the book, but he was just really, really bad with money, like terrible with money. Winter and the publisher of Hubbard's book resigned. Campbell, the editor from Astounding Science Fiction, also resigned, criticizing Hubbard for being impossible to work with and blamed him for the disorganization and financial ruin of the foundations. So, and then by the end of summer 1951, the Elizabeth, New Jersey Foundation and all of its branches had closed. So
that didn't last long.
Yeah, as soon as this fucking thing came out, he just ran it straight into the ground.
And he had a good scam going. He probably could have just rode that for, probably lived the rest of his life off of that.
Yeah, he was like historically bad with money. We didn't talk about it in part one, but when he sold his first book, Buckskin Brigades, they owed a lot of money to places. Like grocery stores and stuff were kind of giving him, like fronting him some money to buy food and stuff. So when he sold Buckskin Brigades, it was like his wife, Polly, at the time was like, oh, we can pay our bills back and shit. And then he just rolls in with a fucking boat. He just spent all that money and bought a boat. So he has never been good with money. He's really...
He looks like that kind of guy, too.
Just a complete
Tell by
idiot.
looking at him. Dick.
At the same time that Dianetics was collapsing, his marriage to Sarah Northrup was also collapsing. He had begun an affair with a 20-year-old public relations assistant named Barbara in late 1950, while Sarah started a relationship with a Dianetics officer named Miles Hollister. Miles and Barbara were previously boyfriend and girlfriend, so they just kind of
swapped it
up.
Yeah.
Well, Hubbard was so handsome. I mean, it's understandable.
And such a money bags and, good with the money.
Those teeth he's got were awesome, so I understand the attraction.
And he's so smart, Dave. He's so enlightened. Or as the kids say, woke.
Woke.
Well,
he's a nuclear physicist, too,
yeah,
so.
Of course.
And a botanist and a war hero. And
it's the perfect man.
Mm-hmm.
And he had met the pussy whisperer, so he had it all going for him.
Hubbard knew full well what was going on and like would intentionally try and make this extremely fucking uncomfortable and would like try to go on double dates together and stuff. Like he was a real asshole regarding this whole situation. I mean, we said it earlier, he doesn't have a very high opinion of women. So even though he was having this affair, Sarah wasn't allowed to do her own thing, of course. So he secretly told the FBI in March 1951 that Sarah and Miles were communist infiltrators, which I guess from what I was reading, that was a pretty easy way to fuck with somebody that you didn't like back in the 50s.
In 1951, sure.
Yeah, just rat him out as a communist. And
hell yeah.
Yeah. According to Hubbard, Sarah was, quote, currently intimate with with communist, but evidently under coercion. Drug addiction set in fall 1950. Nothing of this was known to me until a few weeks ago.
What a guy.
Yeah. So, of course, the FBI jumped all over this because
Well, they had hard-ons for communists at the time, yeah.
Yeah. The FBI met with Hubbard about his allegations, but the agent interviewing him went back to the FBI and was like, yeah, there's nothing here, but we should open up a fucking file on this guy because this guy is a nut. It's basically what it came down to.
That FBI agent is the most sane person we have discussed in the last 2 weeks.
Exactly.
The last 2 weeks. That guy's a hero.
And 100% accurate.
Yeah. And that's something that we'll see too in part 3, that when Hubbard tries this shit where he tries to fuck with people, he ends up bringing heat back on himself a lot of times.
He's not always so clever.
No, he's not.
Now, compared to all the other like cult leaders we've discussed,
He doesn't seem all that bright.
No.
Yeah.
And he's the most successful, or partially, I guess.
I guess it's all on how you look at it.
Yeah.
I meant more Scientology, but I don't know, the role he necessarily.
3 weeks later, Hubbard and 2 foundation staff members kidnapped Sarah and his 2-year-old daughter, Alexis, and forcibly took them to San Bernardino, California, where he drove around all night with Sarah in the car to different hospitals trying to get a doctor to declare her insane. And
God damn.
Yeah, it just sounded like they would come in and the doctors are like, no, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like,
the fuck out of here, and thank you for wasting my time.
Yeah. He let Sarah go, but took Alexis to Havana, Cuba. And man, he was really fucked up. And this is what I'm talking about with like celebrities and people that, I mean, celebrities aren't necessarily our brightest minds, but they're people that a lot of people look up to and stuff. You know, at one point during this time, he called Sarah and told her that he killed their daughter and had like dismembered her, and then just let that sit for a couple days while he was in Cuba, and then called her back and was like, you know, and he refused to agree for the divorce, and had told Sarah basically, you should kill yourself before publicly divorcing me. Like, it would be better if you killed yourself. Like, just really. He is not a good person at all. Sarah filed for a divorce suit on April 23rd, 1951 that accused him of marrying her bigamously and subjecting her to sleep deprivation, beatings, strangulation, kidnapping, and extortions to commit suicide. The bigamously part is because he was still married to Polly, which is accurate.
From the Magic Castle. What's his name's girlfriend, right?
Yeah, or no, that's who he's divorced, or that's who's divorcing him right now.
Oh, that's right. That was the Polly Gruber.
Dave, how are you not following this whole story?
Man, this is a tough one. There's a lot of players here.
Yeah. With the extortions to commit suicide, that's what I was just talking about. How he said, you know, you should kill yourself before. According to her journals, while she was pregnant with their daughter Alexis, there was a lot of times that he tried to get her to have an abortion and would kick her in her stomach. And then at one point in one of her journals, that he hit her so hard that he broke her eardrum.
Damn.
So yeah, he's just not a.
But women are awful.
Yeah,
according
right.
to Dianetics.
Yeah.
Is that where we get all this from? Her journals
about the beatings and stuff. Yeah. She has pretty There's lengthy journal entries from her out there. So she went and got a lawyer that knew exactly what he was doing and liked a lot of publicity and stuff. So he started running, because I mean, L. Ron Hubbard was, you know, the author of Dianetics and shit. So he started rolling with these headlines like, quote, Hubbard is insane, says wife, like just plastering his name out there. Yeah. So he finally agreed to give their daughter back. She got their daughter Alexis back in June 1951. He agreed to go forward with the divorce only if she signed a written statement declaring him, quote, the things I have said about L. Ron Hubbard in courts and public prints have been grossly exaggerated or entirely false. I have not at any time believed otherwise. L. Ron Hubbard is a fine and brilliant man.
That's great.
Fine and brilliant man.
It's like another episode we talked about before. I know Jim Jones was guilty of that, getting people to sign blank pieces of paper.
Yeah, like that dude that he wanted, that he had signed that paper about wanting his wife to get pregnant by Jim Jones.
Yeah. But then he would have people sign blank ones that they could just fill in with whatever. And it's like, no court is going to acknowledge this. This is nonsense. You know, it's like, it's really childish. But her doing this is what got him to give their daughter back and go through with the divorce.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
At some point.
So Dianetics appeared to be on like, it was still had a little bit of life to it at this point, but it was like any day it would just be completely done. But then this guy, Don Purcell, rolls in. He's a millionaire businessman and a true believer in Dianetics who just agreed to fully support a new foundation in Wichita, Kansas.
Brought him back from the dead.
Yep.
It's another one of those points in history where if this guy wasn't around, it would have just faded like every other dumb fad, you know.
Yeah. Purcell was expected to pay for everything, which he completely did. I mean, he decked this place out super nice. And Hubbard published his second book under Dianetics titled The Science of Survival. The Science of Survival kept up with the trend of everything with Scientology, where it's just super fucking confusing and unreadable, worse than the book before.
That's hard.
Yeah. This book focused on the tone scale, which is a big part in the beliefs carried over to Scientology. The tone scale is a ranking scale of your physical and emotional state going from 40 to -40. It's basically like your attitude is based on your survival rate, is the way that I understand this.
Your attitude is based on your survival rate.
Right.
As in, like, if I have a positive attitude, I'm more likely to survive?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to read through this tone scale, and if either of you feel like interjecting at any time, feel free. All right, so I'm going to start in the negatives for this. -40, total failure. This is death. You are dead at this point.
Oh, literally dead.
You are literally dead at -40. -30, can't hide. -20, being nothing. -10, being objects. -8, hiding. -6, sacrifice. -5, worshipping bodies. -4, needing bodies. -3.5, approval from bodies. -3, owning bodies. -2.2, protecting bodies. -1.5, controlling bodies. -1.3, regret. -1, blame. -0.7, accountable. -0.2, shame. -0.1, pity. -0.01, failure. And 0, body death.
So all those things you read are worse than being dead?
No, dead is -40.
Well, what's body death at 0 then?
I'm not completely sure on that. I don't know what body death is exactly.
And so the rest of those are just like your attitude.
Yeah, so here's what I think happened when he's writing this list. I think he started at 0 with body death, and that was supposed to be you're dead. But then he's like, I need to add some negatives to this shit to make this sound a lot worse. So then we just kept going down.
And he just kept going down that list of.
And then total failure is you are dead at that point.
But not body dead. That's something different.
I'm not clear on what body death is exactly. I'm not clear on what any of this is exactly.
We're all going to leave this episode with some more questions than answers.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I have no idea what any of this means.
No.
It's very, very hard to follow.
You don't know what being a -8 is at hiding? Or why in the world a -0.01 is failure? Like, the numbers are just fucking nonsense in themselves.
And again, what is that? It's supposed to be attitude, right?
This is your
so your
attitude.
Attitude is failure?
Your attitude is completely consistent with your survival rate. So
what does that...
I don't like your tone, Mike.
Well, Dave, I'm 0.2. I'm Shane.
So if you're let's say that you are at a -30 and you are at can't hide, you're pretty fucking close to being dead at that point. You only got -10 to go, and then you're dead.
Don't use up those last 10.
Because your bad attitude's going to kill you eventually as you go down the scale.
Well, your survival rate, yes. Folks, we are not making this up.
This is the tone scale is on Scientology.org. I mean, you can read the tone scale.
It's like one of their big tenets of the whole religion.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the positive ones.
All right. So positive
can only go up from body death.
Yep. At 0.01, you are dying.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. I really think that body death was supposed to be really death, but then he was like, I gotta throw some negatives in this shit. So 0.01 is dying. 0.03, useless.
That's me.
0.05, apathy. 0.07, hopeless. 0.1, victim. 0.2, self-abasement. 0.3, undeserving. 0.375, making amends.
Why not 0.4?
0.5, grief. 0.8, propitiation. 0.9, sympathy. 0.94, numb. 0.96, terror. 0.98, despair, 1 fear, 1.02 anxiety, 1.1 covert hostility. I'm going to stop at that one because that's a pretty common one for them.
They like to assign that tone to a lot of people.
Yes, that's the most common to call people, other than a suppressive person, which we'll get into that later. But going 1, they call it going 1-1. So if you were 1-1, means you're basically someone. It seems like it's a catch-all for just anybody.
Like if anything's wrong with you.
Yeah, and they specifically say that it's like someone that'll like smile in your face and stab you in the back kind of thing. But interestingly, they also put homosexuals at 1.1, and that's where you get the gay cure of Scientology.
Fuck's sake!
Because if you go past 1.1, then you are no longer gay.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
because your attitude is so positive that you couldn't possibly be gay. If you're what is it, 1.2? Well, you're too positive. You couldn't possibly be gay.
I guess.
No, I mean,
yeah, I know.
What the fuck are they saying?
But yeah, that's the other thing that
it's just very.
I feel gets lost in the mix of all their stuff is how homophobic they are.
Yeah,
very homophobic,
which is kind of weird being a big thing in Hollywood.
Yeah,
kind of conflicts with you know, what you would view as a traditional liberal Hollywood views.
It's really shitty. Anything that claims any type of gay therapy to get rid of that is ridiculous.
Of course, that's terrible.
Then we go to 1.15 unexpressed resentment. So now you should technically not be gay anymore if you hit that point.
Okay.
1.2 no sympathy. 1.3 resentment. 1.4 hate. 1.5 anger.
So I'm angry 22 hours a day on average with anything. I get pissed off. Does that mean I'm living life at a 1.5?
Sure.
So my survival rate's not bad.
It's better than being negative.
I mean, whether it's traffic or the news or, you know, whatever the fuck it is.
It's at the higher end of the scale.
I get angry so quickly. And more often than not, I'm annoyed and angry by something. Well, is annoy on there?
No. But
okay,
we can go up 1.8 pain, 1.9 hostility. You kind of sound a little hostile.
I am hostile. Okay. As you were.
2.0 antagonism, 2.4 monotony, 2.5 boredom, 2.6 disinterested, 2.8 contended, 2.9 mild interest, 3.0 conservatism, 3.3 strong interest, 3.5 cheerfulness.
Turning the corner here.
Yeah, we're getting up there.
There we go.
4.0 enthusiasm.
Yeah.
6.0 aesthetic. 8.0, we just skipped 5 and 7 there. 8.0.
Quit being logical.
Exhilaration.
That was like Tom Cruise jumping up and down on the couch.
Yeah.
He was 8.0.
Oh, he knew what he was doing.
20 action. 22 games. 30.
Wait, what the fuck does that mean?
Don't question it. 22 games, 30 postulates, and 40 serenity of beingness.
What's your attitude? Games. I'm a 22, bruh. So are you keeping up with us at home? Did you make your flashcards? Got all that memorized?
Jumped out the fucking windows. So stupid.
In this book, in the second book of Dianetics, Hubbard specifically says that if you are under a 2 on the scale, that you do not deserve civil rights and you should be destroyed. So then you're all dead of body or whatever the fuck that is. So that statement's just kind of slid into that second book.
Literally?
Like literally you should be destroyed and you do not deserve basic civil rights.
Well, I'm at a 39.999, so
hold on, let me get my sheet out, Dave. You're almost there, man.
Almost there.
You're almost there.
I think I'm better than Jesus when I get up to 40.
Yeah, well, because once you get to 40, it supposedly means that you can make people do things against their will. And in Scientology terms, it's called tone 40. So technically, auditors should be able to tone 40 someone.
They can tone 40 their ass.
Yes.
That's what they used to say.
Yeah.
I'll tone 40 his ass.
Mm-hmm. And
he's like, please stop talking.
All this stuff is made to be confusing as hell on purpose.
You don't say.
And by doing this, it's setting up that Hubbard is the only one that has the answers, and his organization is the only one that has the answers. So if this is helping you, then you need to go to him because if you bought the second book on your own, you would be like, what is this? You know, but you go to the Dianetics Center or Foundation, and
you pay them, and then they help you.
Yeah,
once the hooks are in,
they'll help you out. So as people believing in Dianetics started to travel to Kansas to pay for sessions, one person in particular showed up, a 19-year-old girl from Texas named Mary Sue Whipp. Mary Sue was a devout believer in Hubbard. Like, she believed in Dianetics, but she believed in L. Ron Hubbard specifically. And soon after meeting, the two would be married, with her staying with him until the end of his life, despite Hubbard letting her to go to prison for him. But we'll get into that in part 3.
Seems so out of character for this guy.
Purcell basically had issues with Hubbard as soon as the new foundation started.
This is the guy that funded this whole thing.
Right. And the guys...
That's right. We haven't talked about him in a while.
Yeah. He's been paying for all this shit. And the editor from Astounding Science Fiction and that Dr. Winter, they had problems with him, and it's basically said like he was just a complete maniac and like impossible to work with. And that's what Purcell was dealing with almost right off the bat. But Hubbard also started this new con that Purcell didn't agree with, which was past lives. In the beginning of Dianetics, like we talked about, you should be able to follow your memories back to birth or even to the mother's womb to track down these engrams and clear them. But to keep this scam going, Hubbard introduced past lives, so now the person can go into memories of past lives, which brings in a whole new set of engrams to clear.
An infinite availability of engrams.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you were doing in your past life, there's a lot of engrams there to get rid of.
Just write a simple check for $500, and we'll start sessions on those engrams right away.
On top of not being on board with the whole past lives things, Purcell was getting fed up with Hubbard because Hubbard was purposely starting to fuck with him. Hubbard would start like doing these faith healing things in lectures.
Heal.
And tell people to put their glasses in a bowl before they came into the lecture because they wouldn't need them anymore when they came out. This Purcell guy was like completely blind without his glasses, and the only reason that Hubbard was saying put your glasses in was so he could get the glasses off of Purcell and just watch him like fucking like bump into shit trying to leave. And Hubbard would just be in the back laughing at him like he's an idiot.
Class A troll, this guy.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Purcell's literally paying for everything he has.
Yeah.
But no, let's fuck with him.
Yeah. So Purcell was not thrilled.
Also, that's just mean and hurtful. Why would you do that to someone?
An old guy that's a true believer. That's how you do. That's how you play the guy.
Mm-hmm. Hubbard did not learn from his money issues and continued to fuck up. But his past ones led to a court ruling that this new Kansas location was responsible for all that debt that he racked up back at the old New Jersey location. And Purcell, being this millionaire businessman, he figured the smartest thing to do is just file bankruptcy and just, clear out the debts and start over. But Hubbard saw that as a failure and refused. Hubbard lost this battle and the bankruptcy was filed, so he resigned and opened up the Hubbard College on the other side of Wichita. And this is where Hubbard came up with one of the main aspects of Scientology, which is the E-meter.
Is it easy to open a college? What the fuck?
I guess we could just buy a building and call it a college.
I guess. Doesn't have to be accredited necessarily.
Necronama U.
Yeah.
Oh.
Shaping formidable young minds.
I'd be up for that.
Covering these cults, especially this one, just say whatever the fuck you want. Somebody will pay for it.
There's a population out there that will believe it.
Yeah.
Literally, if we put any actual effort into making them better people, we would be 10 times better than all of these cults we've ever covered.
Right.
All right, Necronama U, coming fall 2021.
The E-meter is one of the most famous things. I think anybody that knows much about Scientology knows what the E-meter is. It's the device. It's got this gauge on it and these dials that they fuck with, and you hold the two cans. It's got two cans. They look like cans that you hold. Wires go into it. I took this directly from their website. So this is what they talk about this as. That is a religious artifact used as a spiritual guide in auditing. When the E-meter is operated and a person holds the meter's electrodes, A very tiny flow of electrical energy passes down the wires of the e-meter leads, through the person's body, and back into the e-meter. When the person thinks a thought, looks at a picture in their mind, re-experiences an incident, or shifts some part of the reactive mind, they are moving and changing actual mental mass and energy. These changes in the mind influence the tiny flow of electrical energy generated by the e-meter, causing the needle dial to move. The needle reactions on the e-meter tell the auditor where the charge lies and that it should be addressed through auditing.
That's just literally made up nothing.
It's a religious artifact, Dave.
You know what would be entertaining, though, if we went down and broke into one of their auditing headquarters and like hooked up 240-volt batteries, somehow wired it. So when they grabbed it, they went flying across the room. That would be entertaining.
It is our opinion that if that happened, it would be funny.
No one do that.
Oh, I'm not encouraging anyone to do that.
That is Dave's opinion. That is not the opinion of Cool Down Media, LLC.
In reality, what the e-meter is, it's a lie detector test without the heart rate and blood pressure being taken. So it's 1/3 of a lie detector test is what it is.
And lie detector tests, as we've documented many times, are worthless and not relevant.
And it's got this made-up meter on the front with this little thing that goes back and forth, and it's supposed to tell them when this negative thought has been cleared or when we've gotten rid of that Ingram.
How do so many seemingly bright people fall for this kind of stuff? It's really wild.
That's a good question, man.
Almost every time we do a cult one, I watch these. I find like a lecture or something and watch this guy named Rick Allen Ross. Mm-hmm. He's like kind of the go-to cult guy nowadays. He's a PhD. He's wrote tons and tons of books on cults. But
is he the guy in the Going Clear?
In the one that I
followed him,
the half-hour one I sent you,
yeah, okay.
That they made a whole website about how.
Can we just get him on the show?
I would love to talk to him. Yeah, he is the cult guy. But like what he said with cults, it's interesting that what he has found is that everybody that's like people that say like I would never join a cult, that would never ever happen to me, are always the people it happens to. And it's not these like people don't go out of their way like looking for a group to join. It's always when they're at a low point in their life. Like nobody that joins a cult is having a great time in their life at that point. And they're usually, what he said that he has found is that they're usually brought in by someone that they trust, either a friend or a coworker or someone that's already in the group. And they're like, hey, your family member died or something's going on in your life. And they're like, hey, this group can really help you out. And then they try it. And next thing you know, you're roped in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we don't need to interview that guy because you explained it perfectly. We'll just interview you. Yeah. Dave and I'll interview you one day about cults.
He's a really interesting guy. And yeah, Scientology fucking hates him, man. They have a whole website. I think it's whoisrickross.com.
Like a 200-page PDF on this guy, I believe is what he said.
Trying to dig up shit from his past, like dumb shit all the way. I think he said like all the way back until he was 8 years old, they were digging up stuff on him.
Right.
He had detention in 4th grade. Yeah. Like, see, he's a piece of shit.
And I think with Scientology specifically, that you're not going through a good time in life when you join the stuff. You're looking for answers or something's going on in your life. But then when you're at this point in Scientology, you're probably, I would say, about $30,000 in at this point, possibly 50 grand in. So I think some people can keep rationalizing it, and they're like, fuck, I just put so much money, there's got to be something. Like, I can't just bail on this shit already.
These other people wouldn't be paying this much money if there wasn't something to it. Just rationalizing it away.
Right. Yeah. Or you just rationalize it. I paid this much. I'm just going with it. This is it now.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big things why a lot of people continue with Scientology is the cost. I mean, it's insane. So just to circle back to the e-meter, it is not a religious artifact. It's just 1/3 of a lie detector test.
They didn't find it like buried under the ancient pyramids or something?
They did not, because I was actually reading, it wasn't even invented by L. Ron Hubbard. It was actually invented by Russians back in the day as like a kind of a precursor to a lie detector test. It's not even something unique to Hubbard or Scientology. So only 6 weeks after setting up the Hubbard College, Hubbard closed it down and moved with his new bride to Phoenix, Arizona. He established the Hubbard Association of Scientologists International to promote his new science of certainty, Scientology. What's different between Scientology and Dianetics was that Dianetics is all about releasing the mind from the, quote, distorting influence of engrams, and Scientology is, quote, the study of handling of the spirit in relation to itself, universes, and other life. So with Hubbard resigning due to bankruptcy, he was afraid that he would lose the rights for Dianetics to Purcell. Scientology was not something new that Hubbard had discovered through research, like he said. It was to make damn sure that no one else made money off of Dianetics. But like all things Hubbard came up with, Scientology brought all new levels of things that you need to clear in your life. After becoming clear, going through the tone scale, there was now the new level of OT, operating Thetan. The most famous OT level is OT3 because of the whole Xenu story and all that, but we'll get into that for part 3.
Teaser.
I thought it was coming in this one, but then as
I
I
gotta
was
wait another week. It's the only good part of the whole story.
You're giving us Xenu blue balls over here.
So the true soul of a person is a spirit of a being that has attached itself to the person, and that spirit is called a Thetan.
No, it's Satan. Mike Tyson.
Thetans created the universe just to amuse themselves, but in the process, they lost their superpowers. Over trillions of years, Thetans had gone in and out of bodies, never staying in the same one, but every person has always been inhabited by a Thetan.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but has he provided any scientific proof or peer review to support this hypothesis?
No.
Oh, okay.
Dave, who's currently your Thetan?
Jeez, I don't know.
Have you acquainted yourself with
Not
him?
really,
You should.
no.
You should.
It's a new concept for me. I'm going to have to get audited.
Well, you're not clear. You're pre-clear.
I'm
still.
pre-clear for sure.
Pre-clear. Just a quick check, $5,000. You'll be all right. They'll get you there. Stage 1, $5,000.
Well, I was going to take a briefcase full of cash down there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You're perfect. You'll jump from a dead body to like a 2.7 real quick.
To get to OT1, I'm pretty sure you're about $100,000 in debt at that point.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. to get
LRH.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the Bible's not looking so bad. At least that one's free.
So with the help of Scientology and auditing, a person could restore their Thetan to its superpowers, and then you would become an operating Thetan, because we all still have the Thetan in us. So your soul is really a Thetan. Through auditing, you can restore its superpowers, and then you yourself are now an operating Thetan.
Got it.
Meaning you're in control then instead of it controlling you? Kind of, sort of,
Sure.
maybe?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go with that. That works.
If you became an OT, you would actually become, you'd be better off than Jesus or Buddha, because according to Hubbard, they were both, quote, a shade above clear. So you're better off than Jesus Christ.
Buddha was
at that
enlightened. Come on, man.
But he wasn't clear.
Point. It was not clear. Do you think Buddha went back through until his womb to figure out all that stuff
Of course.
and clear all those engrams?
Yes, I do.
I don't believe Buddha had any Ingrams. How about that?
All right.
Wow.
Hubbard followed up the initial idea of Scientology with this book, Scientology: The History of Man, because at this point we only have one OT level, and in present day it goes all the way up to OT8, because Scientology has never, under David Miscavige, they just keep that trend of there's always something new. There's always something new that you got to pay for that's been
Gotta keep it
found out.
fresh.
Yeah. This book, The History of Man, introduced these things called genetic entities. They are described as low-level souls that are in your body alongside the Thetan. They call them GEs, and those, of course, had engrams that needed to be cleared.
More sets of Ingrams.
Right. So
Holy moly.
So not only did you live past lives, you have a Thetan in you that has its own engrams, and now we have genetic entities that are also inside your body that also have engrams.
So Dianetics is just straight up getting rid of engrams inside of you. And anytime you think you've gotten rid of all of them,
But
they'll
wait,
create
there's more.
a whole new level of something else that contains engrams.
Right. And you need to
You need to clear those to have clear mind.
right. And now you will be an operating Thetan if you clear that Thetan.
I have a question. Do we have any idea of how much time this takes, like, takes up for the average person every week to study this stuff?
Well, that's
Is it
based on, it's based on your bank account, Dave.
I think, yeah, it's based on your bank account and
But do you get study
time.
materials? Does it take up all of your spare time?
yeah, you have nothing.
all
What
you
are
do.
you studying?
You are reading these nonsense books
There's the books that he wrote
and you're auditing.
that are more confusing than our episode today.
Yeah, and you're going through auditing constantly.
Levels of auditing.
Yeah, you're holding on to the e-meter cans and and being taught and going through your auditing process.
Okay.
I like to hold on to some cans, but those aren't the kind of cans I want to be holding on to all day.
Well, you know, the thing too with auditing and when you're getting to this level, there's stories of people legit like going crazy from all this because it's like you believe in this stuff so thoroughly, and it's like it's like piling on more stress. It's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got these past life engrams out, and like, oh fuck, now I got a thetan inside of me, and now I've got a genetic entity inside of me. It's like freaks people out. There's stories of people like really doing significant mental damage to people, piling on all this stress of it's fucking crazy.
And at the end of the day, it's nothing but a financial scam.
Yeah, it really is. For me, this is where things go way off the rails. The book describes numerous incidents that, according to Hubbard, occurred to the thetan or the genetic entity in past lives. These stages of biological history, some typified by an animal and others typified by other items, were marked by traumatic incidents which have to be, quote, run out using the e-meter. So it's just another way of saying we're clearing engrams.
So this is kind of our shared evolutionary history as human beings.
Yes. So we're going to get into some of these incidents that Hubbard found particularly worth commenting on in this book.
Did he ever say where he gained this knowledge from?
Research.
What exactly was he researching?
Just researching.
Yeah. Don't ask questions. Just open up that.
Like, did he find hidden scrolls in the Dead Sea that no one knows about, or...
I know that there's stories about there's stuff that he found through auditing, like going back into past lives. There's stuff about that he went to heaven at one point, trillions of years ago. Trillions.
Listen, pal. Open your mind and your checkbooks. Sit there and relax.
The photon converter, essentially an early photosynthetic organism such as an algae or plankton. Hubbard deemed the photon converter to be responsible for fears of, quote, light and dark, the storms of the sea, the fight to keep from rolling into the surf. So you got that. If you're afraid of the light and the dark, it's because of this photon converter that fucked with algae and plankton.
Got it.
Trillions of years ago.
Trillions of years ago. This is my fate. This is the best thing that I've ever read regarding something.
All right, folks. This is the juicy part of this episode.
Drum roll.
The clam.
Was that your drum roll, Dave?
I was trying to make
You
a noise.
can't roll your
No,
R's?
I cannot.
The clam.
One of a number of incidents between the helper and the weeper. Others include seaweed and, quote, jellyfish incidents, which are quite remarkable for their occasional aberrative force. Encounters between jellyfish and cave walls are held to be responsible for the emergence of, quote, a shell as in the clam. The clam itself is a, quote, deadly incident involving a, quote, scallop-lipped, white-shelled creature which suffered from a severe split personality or, quote, double hinge problem. One hinge wishes to stay open, the other tries to close, thus the conflict occurs. According to Hubbard, the hinge of the clam, quote, later becomes the hinges of the human jaw. And the clam's method of reproduction in spores is said to be responsible for toothaches. In one of the most famous passages of the book, Hubbard advised that,
should you desire to confirm this, describe to some uninitiated person the death of a clam without saying what you are describing. Can you imagine a clam sitting on the beach, opening and closing its shell very rapidly? Make a motion with your thumb and forefinger of a rapid opening and closing. The victim may grip his jaws with his hand and feel quite upset. He may even have to have a few teeth pulled. At the very least, he will argue as to whether or not the shell stays open at the end or closed. And he will, with no hint of the death aspect of it, talk about the poor clam, and he will feel quite sad emotionally. I just want some seafood now, talking about fucking all this.
You get
shellfish and clams and...
Well, he goes on to warn the reader that, quote, your discussion of these incidents with uninitiated in Scientology can cause havoc. Should you describe the clam to someone, you may re-stimulate it in him to the extent of causing severe jaw pain. One such victim, after hearing about a clam death, should not use his jaw for 3 days. So,
I believe myself to be a reasonably intelligent person, and I have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. I don't know what any of this means. I don't know what they're trying to get at.
Talking about clams, Dave.
this is his interpretation of
evolution.
Yeah, of evolution. The way I read this or read this as is that this genetic entity is the soul of the clam. That we came from this clam, that we evolved from clams, is how I read this.
Say that last sentence again.
We evolved from clams.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on.
It's good enough for me.
That doesn't hurt your mouth? That does not hurt your mouth?
Folks, we've been talking for 9 pages in notes. Let's sum this up. We've evolved from clams. Continue.
But we're not even to the best. We're not even done with this evolutionary chain here, because now we're under the weepers and the boohoos. The Weeper and Boohoo incidents deal with a mollusk that rolled into the surf for 500,000 years, pumping seawater from its shell as it breathed. Weepers had trillions of misadventures, whereof the principal was the anxiety of inhalation before the next wave. The inability of a pre-clear to cry, Hubbard explained, is partly hung up in the Weeper. He is about to be hit by a wave, his eyes full of sand, or is frightened about opening his shell because he may be hit. So there you go. If you can't cry, it's because of the Weeper, what the Weeper went through, being afraid of getting hit by a wave.
For 500,000 years.
Trillions. Or, wait, he had trillions of misadventures. I'm not sure how many years ago that was.
But if I can't cry, won't that affect my attitude and hurt me on the tone scale?
You could be considered what was it, -30 was hiding or
Yeah.
still hiding or something.
Even though I'm trying to cry, but I can't because of the Weeper and the Boohoo?
This is like a whole sidebar in Scientology that I did not even know existed until I was deep diving into this. I did not know that this book was even a thing. So the birds were a traumatic incident caused when, quote, birds of very crude construction developed a taste for clams. As a result of birds' attacks on ancestral clams, modern man suffers from, quote, falling sensations, indecisions, and other troubles. So if you ever wondered why you were indecisive on something, it's because a bird tried to eat a clam trillions of years ago.
I mean, it happens.
I guess. Where are clams? How far down are clams? Do birds even eat clams? Is that real?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
There is a lot more to that book. I really wanted to just hit on the clams in the Weepers and the Boohoos. If anybody's interested, you can go read. It goes on for a very long time. We get into...
There's tons. None of it makes any sense.
No. A lot of reasons for why we feel the way we feel that make no sense at all. But within a couple of years, Scientology had started to set up small centers all over the world, and in particular, England. In 1953, Hubbard took over one of these centers in the UK and named it the Hubbard Association of Scientologists International. England was a little worried about Hubbard showing up with this new religion, but he rolled in there telling them that he was a nuclear physicist who turned botanist and was using the E-meter to try and prove that plants have feelings.
Isn't there that famous picture with the tomatoes hooked up to the E-meter?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that.
That's like the thing that the guy in the Going Clear documentary on HBO said, that his opinion was that Hubbard was really just a sick individual, and that people went along with him on this journey because,
like the FBI guy said years and years prior.
Yeah, I mean, he spent hours and hours of time like with putting the E-meter on tomatoes and different plants and shit, trying to prove that they could be audited and had feelings.
The signs sure point to it.
Yeah. Back in the U.S., Purcell gave up his fight for the rights to Dianetics after harassment and some real-life gang stalking that Scientology calls fair game, that we'll get into in a bit here. With the fight over, Hubbard officially incorporated the Church of Scientology on February 1st, 1954. And this was the perfect move for him because even though he didn't get tax exemption until years later, they were still protected under religious freedom laws, certain laws.
That's another whole issue in this country.
Yeah.
What's that? Do we want to go down that rabbit hole, Dave?
I mean, this whole religious bending over backwards for people's religious, wacky ideas. It's too far sometimes, I feel. Just because you make a silly religion
I would agree.
with silly views doesn't mean you get to have,
I think the tax exemption thing is very, very questionable.
Yeah.
Especially in Scientology's case.
I mean,
what would you propose, Dave? How would you correct that, do you think?
Well,
I was trying to start a whole debate. I don't know. I'm just keeping the conversation going.
I don't know, but you shouldn't be able to just start a religion and come up with wacky views and the rest, like you get an exemption to the norms of society because you call it a religion.
And everyone has to accept it and you can't say anything about it. Much like Scientology, where when you hate on them, they're going to call you out for hate speech.
And I think that's fine, but I think the problem with them is some of the stuff that they've been able to get away with, and like in some of their retaliation against people, is where.
And that's more what we're getting to next.
Yeah.
Well, then tax exemption thing. No church should have tax exemption. That's just ridiculous to begin with.
Yeah.
All these churches should pay taxes.
Fuck, we got to pay taxes. They should too.
100%.
The Church of Necronomapod has to pay taxes.
We're a charitable organization.
Right.
By 56, Hubbard had written over 60 books on Scientology, about 2 a month. And each one offered new processes with the, quote, technology.
Were they all entirely new books, or were they just kind of updated versions with a few new chapters?
Some of them were entirely new. Some of them were just like updated, like, oh, that thing that I said last time about the Weeper and Boohoo? Well, I was doing further research, and that's not actually completely correct. So now you got to go back and redo that whole thing, and that's going to cost you more money.
Just mind-numbing, the scale of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when they talk about technology, you hear them, they always call it the tech, this new tech and stuff. It's just the belief system. It's their terminology and stuff. There's no real technology to any of it. Despite making tons of money with all these new courses, Hubbard would still duck out on rent and just just leech off of his followers. His landlords were super surprised when all of a sudden he bought the St. Hill Manor building in England for a little over $74,000 in 1950s money. This would be the headquarters for Scientology over the next few years. At this point, Hubbard's first son, Nibs, had shown back up into the picture, wanting to be a part of Scientology. Quickly, Nibs was given high-ranking titles in the church. However, he became disillusioned because he wasn't getting all that financial benefits that he thought he would get from being the son of L. Ron Hubbard.
I mean, besides his cool name, did Nibs have any other qualifications to be granted this high-ranking title in the church?
No.
And Nibs we touched on in part 1.
Yeah,
so
he's his first son.
Go back and listen to part 1 if you haven't. Why are you still fucking listening to part 2 if you haven't listened to part 1?
Nibs had blown the org, which is Scientology speak for defecting. This pissed Hubbard off royally, and it made him super paranoid. And it wasn't because I'm losing my son or something. It was he thought Nibs was going to take Scientology teachings out with him and do it for himself.
Persona non grata. Poor Nibs.
This paranoia would increasingly get worse, which caused Hubbard to introduce just like straight up police interrogation style questioning while holding the e-meter called sec checks. These interrogations would ask extremely personal and embarrassing questions, which were all recorded and kept on file to be used against someone in case they defected. You want to put him through a sec check or something?
Yeah.
Put me through one? Do I have to answer
Absolutely.
him? Do I have to
Fuck
answer
yeah,
him?
dude.
Okay. All right. Well, go ahead.
Do you collect sexual objects?
Yes.
Does he have to specify?
I was just answering the
Can you
question.
be more
that was
specific?
asked. Yes. I own a 13-inch dildo and Benoit balls.
Nice. Have you ever done anything your mother would be ashamed to find out?
I have fingered a monkey.
Have you ever peddled dope?
No, sir.
Do you have any bastards?
3.
Are you upset about the security check?
No, sir.
Have you ever tried to act normal?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever practiced cannibalism?
No, sir.
Have you ever had intercourse with a member of your family?
Just masturbating to one of them count?
Yes, it does.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had anything to do with a baby farm?
No, sir.
What question in this check shouldn't I ask you again?
Have you ever had intercourse with a member of your family?
Have you ever had intercourse with a member of your family?
Yes, sir.
Are you upset about the security check?
No, sir.
Okay, that concludes the security check.
These were brutal. Where it's like a police interrogation that would go on for so long that people would just admit the stuff that wasn't true, that would be recorded.
Oh, you mean like regular police interrogations?
Yeah, it would be things where people would just basically agree to things or just say shit that wasn't true, that just to get it over and done with.
Hey, folks, just a PSA out there. Don't ever let a Scientologist do a security check on you without your lawyer present.
Or the police, right, Dave?
Or the police.
His paranoia got so bad during this time that he started doing sex checks on children starting at age 6 with questions like, what has somebody told you not to tell? Do you have a secret? Who have you made guilty? Have you ever been a coward? Have you ever decided that someday I will grow up and I'll get even? If so, with whom? And are you upset with this security check?
I love that fucking question.
Yeah. But I mean, a 6-year-old kid, it's ridiculous. And that's why the rumor of what's her face? Katie Holmes got herself and her daughter out of that out of the thing. Yeah, it was because of this security check bullshit with like, yeah, you're not doing that to my kid.
Crazy.
In 1960, Hubbard started issuing out statements about not wanting Nixon to win the election, which caused the FBI to extend their file on him. Like we said before, he was already on their radar, but now with starting a religion and talking shit about presidential elections, they were all over him at that point. When Kennedy was elected, Hubbard was initially happy and offered Scientology to help train astronauts for $25 an hour.
Did they have operational flight experience that would enable them to provide this training?
You know, I don't know what the training exactly was going to consist of. He was so confident that the astronauts would be flooding into the Washington, D.C. Scientology Center that he personally flew there to get them ready. Instead of sending astronauts, the FDA raided their center regarding fall.
This is probably my favorite thing of this whole show. They're going to train astronauts for $25 an
and
hour.
he flies there like all proud. Like he's like, I'm going to greet these guys at the door.
What does that even mean?
It means they're going to make $25 an hour, Dave. Don't worry about what they're going to get trained on.
Instead of getting all those astronauts, he thought they just got raided by the FDA regarding false claims about the e-meter and what it could do for a person. But
that, of all things, that's what got him.
But it was kind of a fuck up by the government because they didn't bring any charges against them for the e-meter, and all it did was just like kind of boast this thing of we're a religion, and now there's
their enemy now,
yeah.
As every cult has.
And he's always had his enemies throughout this, is like people that spoke out against Dianetics or things, but now that he's considered this a religion, and it's like, oh, now
I'm protected.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
In 1965, going with these enemies, Hubbard formulated the Fair Game Law, which states how to deal with people who interfere with Scientology's activities. They call these people suppressive persons, which they call them SPs, could be considered fair game for retaliation.
So, Necronomipod fans, be ready, because we'll have to battle this here in the coming weeks.
Hubbard went on to further say that a suppressive person should be, quote, deprived of property or injured by any means by any Scientologist without any discipline of the Scientologist, may be tricked, sued, or lied to, or destroyed.
It's a harsh language, destroyed.
Yeah.
Throwing this destroyed word around.
We've said that a couple times tonight. Yeah. But that essentially sums up how they come after people, right? They want to destroy your life.
Yep, and this is where you get that real life gang stalking and brutal harassment of critics. You could go see that Marty Rathburn guy. He's a high profile defector. There's then documentaries out there, like they bought a house across the street from him and just put cameras and watched him for years, follow him all over the place.
Years?
Yeah. And a lot of people have gone through and found that they were being followed by private investigators that link back to the church. Just brutal stuff they do to people. The Australian government was already not a fan of Scientology leading up to this, but when they caught wind of all this fair game shit, they released a 173-page report in October of 1965 saying,
Scientology is evil. Its techniques are evil. It's the world's largest organization of unqualified persons engaged in the practice of dangerous techniques which masquerade as mental therapy.
Good job.
That actually was almost so good that it wasn't funny. It was like you just did the accent.
I've been practicing for our Australian fans down under.
I actually think that was really good. Mung Bean's going to shit on it, but poor girl just wants a goddamn tank top.
I mean, I'll say that quote's 100% accurate description. So here's to you, Australia.
Yeah.
You mean they finally got things right, Dave?
It's great. Good for them.
Well, they officially banned the Church of Scientology in December of 1965, which in turn caused the chairman of the National Association of Mental Health to get England to launch their own investigation a few months later. Hubbard responded to this by hiring private investigators to dig up dirt on officials that were investigating him. But these private investigators just turned around and sold the stories to the press. So this dude just piled on more shit onto him.
That's great.
So feeling the heat, Hubbard would again buy a boat and head out to sea where he could escape persecution, launching the Sea Org. And that's where we'll pick up on part 3 with the Sea Org, Hubbard's death, and David Miscavige.
Whew. Dun, dun, dun.
That's quite a story.
Yeah, that was a fucking mouthful and a brainful.
At this point, I reckon that my Aussie mates are the hero of this story for banning these fucking clowns way back when.
And that FBI guy, let's not sell him short, who tried to call it like it was.
And that's the weird thing with them is because, I was reading some of this stuff and I'm like, man, that's really, you kind of got to let people believe what they want to believe, kind of thing. That's like outright banning them. But then I'm like, I'm falling into the trick. Then I'm like, I'm falling into this bullshit that it's a religion. You know, that it is a dangerous cult that claims a lot of things that they're not capable of doing,
and with no evidence of anything that they do.
Yeah, they are just a really predatory cult.
Agree.
I think next week's going to be extremely interesting, though, to see this kind of explode even more and get into the more
all the celebrity stuff and all that.
Yeah. This was a lot of information. I wanted to hit the belief system and the tone scale, even though it
people
makes no
come here
sense.
for thoroughness. If they want to get the story, this is the story.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to get Leah Remini on the show next week? We could talk to her.
That would be great. Doubtful, but
I used
great.
to have a huge crush on her.
Oh,
King
I
of
like
Queens.
her.
Yeah. May Gusta. All right, so we'll talk to her agent and we'll get her on. Maybe that'll be a bonus episode, so you should join patreon.com/necronomapod. Sign up right now, $5 a month. It gets you 3 bonus episodes a month, plus a private Discord where you can chat with all of us and all of the amazing patrons that have already joined.
It's a nice group of folks.
It's been fun. It's actually pretty addicting getting in that Discord. It's a lot of fun. Ian, you got anything else for part 2 of Scientology?
No, I'm feeling wiped on it, in all honesty. I'm gonna
Did a lot of work on this one.
Take the Ingrams caused by this. I'm gonna throw them into my reactive mind and just forget that I ever even typed any of this out.
Look at you making it all make sense.
Do we have a cancel word? We can just snap our fingers and cancel it all out.
People right now are like, wait, what the fuck's a reactive mind again? What's an Ingram? Dave, you got anything to add to this one?
No, we've said quite enough on this.
He's been tuned out since 9 o'clock. All right, so a quick shout out to the new patrons of the month who just signed up, or of the last week. Thank you to Raven, Wesley Chico, Chris Manaya, Kate, John K., and Amanda Sullivan. Thank you very much. You will not regret your decision. Again, that's if you are interested in signing up, patreon.com/necronomapod. Ian, what shout outs you got?
For iTunes, I have one for Simpson89 STTP GSP.
Goddamn.
Music and Notes, Weirdo for Life, JMY Dean, Wichita KS. Thank you guys for all the reviews. Awesome. I like the Wichita KS one too. They were honest about that they didn't initially like us, but they've grown to like our personalities.
Aw, they grew to love us.
Yeah.
We grew on them like a fungus.
Yeah.
It's all right.
At first, you hate us, and then we just take over. Dave and I like cancerous cells.
I get
of
that
the
a lot.
funny
It's
bone.
okay. Don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, whatever. It is what it is.
Give us a couple episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for everyone for listening. It's been awesome. Downloads are great.
Dave, what you got for us?
From Instagram, Jeremy Moffat, 0 to 21, Sam Solemn 13, and Alexandra Louise. Thanks, guys.
Boom, thank you. Also, another big thank you to CastBox. I think we've put it on the socials, but they actually have had us on their banner on the front page of their website and their app for the last few days, and hopefully through the week and maybe even next week. We'll see if we're lucky. But if you guys haven't checked us out on CastBox, download the app and subscribe to the show. That actually goes a long way to help us in the eyes of CastBox and helps us get more eyes on us from other people. So you don't have to download every episode from CastBox. Go back and download all the old ones. But if you subscribe to us on CastBox, that helps. So we appreciate it, and thank you to CastBox as well for that. We are on the socials at Necronomipod. Thank you so much for listening.
Are you guys ready for a cool down beer?
Cheers.